overlooks my sea. When I'm tossed, it sends out the light that I might see. And the light that shines in darkness now will safely lead me home. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, my ship would sail no more. And I thank God for the lighthouse. I owe my life to Him, for Jesus is the lighthouse, and from the rock of sin He has shown a light about me that I could clearly see. If it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me, what would this ship be? Everybody that lives about us say, tear the old lighthouse down. The big ships don't sail this way anymore. No use of it standing round. Then my mind goes back to that stormy night when just in time I saw the light from that old lighthouse that stands up there on the hill. I thank God for the lighthouse. I owe my life to Him, for Jesus is the lighthouse, and from this rock of sin He has shown a light around me that I can clearly see. If it wasn't for the light, tell me, where would this ship be? If it wasn't for the lighthouse, tell me, where would this ship be? I think it's one of those songs we can all relate to. Tonight we finish up the 10 Commandments. Number 10, not the least important by any standards, but number 10. And it's very possible this is the one commandment that we break more than any other and don't even know it. Remember what Paul said? Paul said, I wouldn't know what covet it was if I hadn't read the law. And I want to just break it down a little bit tonight and just, I don't know, just sort of pick it apart. And what does it mean? I mean, if we're going to talk about thou shalt not covet, and that's what the last commandment, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. So, exactly what are we talking about when we're talking about coveting? What does it mean? Paul said in Romans chapter 7 and verse 7, easy to remember, Romans 7:7. What shall we say then? He said, is the law sin? May it never be. On the contrary, he said, I would have not known to know sin except through the law. For I would not have known about coveting if the law had not said, you shall not covet. So Paul's admitting that, I was guilty of this and didn't even know I was guilty of this. And I want to point out a little difference here before we finish tonight, so you won't think every time you want something you're coveting. There's a difference. Now, some people might say, well, it's number 10, so it's not as important as all the others. Well, if you know the Bible very well, you know that every word from Genesis 1:1 to the end of Revelation, any word is just as important as the other, or God wouldn't have put them in here. When Jesus was here on earth, Jesus never, he never wasted a word. Think about it. When he was talking, every word that he said, there was a reason for it. It was specific, and there was a reason for it. He didn't waste words. He didn't waste time. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 5, Paul said that, for you know with certainty no immoral or impure, purpose, or covetous man who is an idolater. Notice that? Notice how he equates a covetous man as being an idolater? He does not have an inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. So now, knowing that, I would say, when you say that number 10 is probably as important as the other 9, since number 2 was talking about the idolater, all right? So, what is coveting? Well, basically, let me just spell it out. We have another word for it. You don't hear the word covet used very much in today's society, but you hear this one a lot. Coveting is basically greed. Greed. Luke chapter 12, verse 15. Luke spoke to that. He said, beware and be on your guard against every form of greed. For not even one who has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions. Coveting is greed. It's basically saying, and here's where we'll make the differential here so you'll know the difference. Let me just say first. Let's say it this way first. If you said, boy, I'd like to have me a little bit better car than what I've got. I'd like to get me a newer car. Not a problem. I would like to move up and get me a little bit bigger and better house than what I've got. Not a problem. I wish I had a little bit better job than what I've got. There's nothing wrong with any one of those three. Where it goes to coveting and greed is your neighbor. Boy, I wish I had his car. Man, that is a nice car he got. I wish I had that. Oh, that's a nice house they live in. I wish that was my house. See the difference? Well, they got promoted over me. They got the better job. I wish I had their job. I need their job. I'll get their job. You just went from innocence to guilt. It's not wanting something better. It's not wanting something per se. It's wanting something that someone else has. And you want it. And is that not the world we live in today? Me, 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 me. People don't care about anybody else. That's all about what can you do for me? What's in it for me? And that's what he's dealing with here in this commandment. Now, since we know what it is, how do you combat it? How do you fight it? Well, Hebrews 13:5 gives us a little bit of a hint. He said, make sure that your character is free from the love of money, being content, here it is, being content with what you have. if you're walking with God, and God's supplying your needs, and He will as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, we can learn to be content. What did Paul say? Philippians chapter 4 and verse 11. Remember what Paul said? Not that I speak from want, for I've learned to be what? Content in whatever circumstances I am. Paul spent half of his ministry or more in prison. And we're not talking about the kind of prisons we've got here. We're talking about cold, dark dungeons with the rats running around them, and lucky if they got food. We're talking about in chains. But Paul said, did he like being in prison? No. But he learned that God's in control. He would not be in prison if God didn't allow him to be in prison. And he said, I've learned to accept it. He was shipwrecked, he was beaten, left for dead, stoned, and yet he said, I've learned to be content. Folks, that is the secret of life. It's the 10th commandment, and it's the secret of life. We've gone through 9 commandments, and we get down to number 10, and people sort of want to overlook this one, and so it could be, I won't say it's the most important, I think they're all equal, but it's the secret to life. Is it not? To learn to be content with what you have. Doesn't mean you don't want more. You can work for more. You can try to get more, honestly, legally, fairly. There's nothing wrong with that. God expects that. But we need to learn that God blesses us according to what He knows we can handle. A lot of people, they play the lottery and then try to get rich, and folks, the reason a lot of people don't have more money than what they've got. God said, hey, you don't have time for me now. If you had more money, you wouldn't have that much time, because you'd be counting on all your money. We need to learn to be content. You can, folks, some of the most content people in the world are some of the poorest. But they're content. They've got food to eat. They may have to really struggle to get it, but they've got food to eat. Overseas, I can't say they got clothes to wear, because a lot of them don't even have clothes to wear. Maybe it's a little something wrapped around their waist, and maybe don't even have shoes, and eating tree roots. But it doesn't mean you're satisfied. It means you can be content with it. God has a reason for doing what God does. But when greed sneaks in, well, I want that. I'm not. And folks, anybody that's got covetousness in their heart, I just use the word greed because that's what it is. Is this not a true statement? A greedy person will never be satisfied.
That's right.
You can't give them enough. When Rockefeller said, the richest man in the world, said, what would it take to make you happy? And Rockefeller said, a little bit more. So folks, with that attitude, you'll never be happy. But we can learn to have joy in our heart because Jesus lives in us. And we learn to be content where we are. Does that mean we don't want to do better? Yes, we might want to do better. There's some things that we might want. And we might want to work for them. We might want to improve our lifestyle. But we can be content where we are. And that's what he's talking about here. People think, well, play the lottery. I want to get rich and then I'll be happy. The writer of Proverbs knew better. In Proverbs chapter 28, he said, a man with an evil eye hastens after wealth and does not know that want will come upon him. Folks, if you get it quick, I've read so many stories of people winning the lottery, and within months, it's gone. And with it, their family, their friends. And by the way, when you win the lottery, you got all kinds of friends. They'll come out of the woodwork. Family members you hadn't heard from in years. That third cousin, distant cousin, 2 times removed on that side of the family. They'll find you. But the lottery, if the lottery made people happy, there wouldn't be that many happy people because not that many people winning. Folks, if you had a chance of winning the lottery, if you had a better chance than getting struck by lightning twice, they wouldn't be in business. How do you think they stay in business making the billions of dollars they make? But you can't convince somebody. The devil keeps whispering, well, yeah, but you're different. You just keep playing. You're going to hit it one of these days and you're going to be rich. And people, well, if I was rich, if I hit the lottery, man, I would tithe 10%. God said, no, you wouldn't. You're not tithing now. If you're not going to tithe on $100, you're definitely not going to tithe on $1 million. Here's what happens when you get greedy. You know what you're saying? When you get greedy, you're saying, get this, God is not enough. God's not enough. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6 and 7. But godliness actually is a means of great gain when accompanied by contentment. We brought nothing into the world. We can't take anything out of the world. You're going to go out of this world the same way you came in. With nothing. You didn't bring anything in. You're not taking anything out. So we need to learn to be content. What you're saying to God is, well, Lord, I know you know, I've got all this, but that's not enough. You need to give me more. Folks, when you've got Jesus, you don't need anything else. When you've got Jesus, you've got it all. You might be living in a third world country. You may be eating tree roots. But one day, you say, well, if you eat tree roots like that and you live like that, you're going to die. If you got Jesus, what's wrong with that? Let me ask you a question. If you got Jesus in your heart and you die, where are you going to take your next breath? Where are you going to take your next breath? Sometimes people talk like death is bad. Well, it is bad if you're not saved. It's terrible if you're not saved. Because the next breath you take is going to be in the lake of fire. But if you're a child of God, nothing bad about death, folks. It just means you're stepping over into glory and you're going to be in paradise with Jesus the rest of your life. But when you say that's not enough, God, that's not enough. I need more. I've heard this. I deserve more. You ever heard that? I deserve. Well, if we all got what we deserve, we'd all go to hell. That's what we deserve. Because we're all born with a sin nature. We've all sinned. At least once. We don't have to count them, okay? But at least once. And how many sins does it take to keep you out of heaven? One. And greed doesn't stop there. Greed leads to worse crimes than that. James referred to it, and he mentioned it in James chapter 4, verse 2. He said, you lust and you do not have. But look what he said next. So you commit murder. You're envious and you cannot obtain it, so you fight and you quarrel. Then he makes a real interesting little statement. You do not have because you do not ask. You know, every murder starts somewhere, but it starts in the heart. Somebody wants something somebody else has. Or they're just angry, but it all starts in the heart. And a greedy person, they want it. They're in my way. If I get them out of the way, I can have it. You see, it shows where your heart is. It shows where your heart is. Paul said in Colossians chapter 3 and verse 5, he made it very clear. Consider the members of your earthly body as dead to immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and greed. He said it again, which amounts to what? Idolatry. Notice that's twice. He has compared in two different books. Paul has compared greed with idolatry. What's idolatry? What's the definition of idolatry? We all know it. Putting anything before God. Worshipping anything before God is idolatry. When you're greedy, God's not enough. So it equates with idolatry because you want more than God. He's not enough. Boy, if I just had a little bit more money, I'd be happy. Well, that's some of the highest suicide rates in the world among some of the richest people. Why do all these super rich Hollywood stars don't even get married, just get 6-month rental agreements? You know, we see it all the time. If people, and this is as plain as a nose on your face, and people still can't see it after all these years. Money doesn't buy happiness. But the devil whispers, but you're different. Boy, you're different though. If you had money, you'd be happy. Some of the most miserable people I know. You know why? Because they can't enjoy the money because they're so worried about somebody taking it away from them. And they can't even enjoy having it because they're afraid somebody's going to take it away from them. I don't have to worry about that. They steal my billfold, they're going to be broke before they get to the end of the street. So, it's no big deal. Take it. Coveters, people who covet, are never satisfied. Never. Jeremiah wrote it, Solomon, Ecclesiastes. He referred to this. Chapter 5, verse 10. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money. That ought to be in the Proverbs. Nor he who loves abundance with its income. He said it's vanity. Sound like something he wrote in Proverbs? Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. Wisest man that ever walked the face of this earth, human, said that. He had everything. God gave him everything he could have. No wars, riches, gave him peace in his lifetime, gave him everything. Great wisdom, and yet, in his old age, he wrote that. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. Folks, if you think you're chasing after riches, you might as well be trying to pull a cloud down from the sky. It doesn't work. Riches won't make you happy, but you can't convince people of that. The devil's got them convinced. Again, he says, God is not enough. I gave you 1 Timothy 6 and 7. Look what he said in the next verse, 1 Timothy 6, chapter 8. If we have food and covering with these, we shall be content. What did God promise to supply for us when he said, I'll supply all your needs? Food, clothing, shelter. That's our needs. We need food. You got to have food to live. Clothing. If you're going to be decent, you need clothing. Doesn't have to be the best stuff on the market. Just cover you up. And you need a place to live to keep you out of the weather. Food, clothing. God supplies that. Now, you may not be living in a mansion. You may not live wearing 3-piece tapered suits. And you may not be eating steaks and having caviar and the finest food every meal. That's what some people call finest food. I've got a different opinion, but anyway. But he said, I'll supply your needs, all your needs. Here's the secret. It's where we focus. Where do you focus your eyes? Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. Look what Matthew, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. When we seek Jesus first, and he sees that our heart is for him, we want him more than anything else in the world. He adds the other. He throws the other in as a bonus, folks. When you get Jesus, you get the other as a bonus. The psalmist summed it up. A very familiar psalm. You all know this one by heart. 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. What's the next line? I shall not want. Have you not found that to be true? No. When you're walking with God, he'll take care of your needs. He will. He said he would. Either he will or he's a liar. There's no other option here. God will do what he said he would do or he's a liar. I've never known God not to do what he said he would do. Now, the secret is giving the Holy Spirit control of your life. You can be a Christian. You understand? You can be a Christian and still not give the Holy Spirit control of your life. You can be a Christian, but you still want to run your life. Galatians speaks to that. Chapter 5, verse 16, he said, but I say, walk by the Spirit. If you walk by the Spirit, you won't carry out the desires of the flesh. Folks, anybody that's greedy and covetous, they're not giving God, the Holy Spirit, control of their life. They want to run their life. There's some good people out here, and they may be Christians, but they want to be Christians, but they don't want to give God control. Folks, it can only be this way. If you want God to bless you, He has to have control of your life. He won't settle for 99% of your life. He wants total control. Why would you not give total control to somebody who knows your every need? There's nothing He can't do. He knows your needs. There's nothing He can't do. And He loves you more than you can ever imagine being loved. He wants what's best for you. Why in the world would we have a problem giving somebody like that control? What's the song say? Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to Thee. But somehow or another, just like Eve, we think we can do it better. We go to plan B. We think we can do it better. Do I need to say this, that you can't do it better than God can? I don't think I need to even mention that. Folks, when God gets a hold of your heart, God will transform your heart. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. I usually say 1 and 2, but I'll just give you 2 tonight. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed. That word is metamorphi. It's only used in the Bible twice. Be transformed by what? By the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that's good and acceptable and perfect. What's he saying? The will of God. How do you do it? Let Him transform your mind. What happens when He transforms your mind? When God transforms your mind, you're no longer worried about what you want. You're only concerned about what He wants. That's all that counts. And by the way, if you're following God and you're serving God and you're opening yourself up and letting Him have total control, let me make you a promise. He'll far exceed anything you want. He wants to bless us. He wants to bless us. We get it His way. God's got a T-bone steak waiting for us, and we're settling for a bologna sandwich. Let God have control. So is it wrong to want a better car, better home? No, that's what I said. It's not wrong. But it does become a sin when you want not one like somebody else's, but you want theirs. That's when it becomes a sin. There's nothing wrong with even saying, boy, I'd like to have a car just like that. Nothing wrong with that. But when you say, I want that one, you just stepped over the line. It's become a sin. So this comes down to what the first 9 all came down to. When you boil down the 10 commandments, they all come down to the same issue. It's a heart issue. When God has your heart, then you'll realize that everything in life, everything else, it's all His. When you do, when God truly has your heart and you realize that, greed will disappear from your life. When I was much younger, when they first started coming out with the lottery, I played the lottery. I wanted to get rich. And I made God that promise too, that everybody makes. Lord, if you just let me win, if you let me win, man, I'm going to give. The Lord said, you can't even handle what you got. What you would do if I gave you that kind of money? I did it. I've been there, done that. But I made that promise. We try to bargain with God. Try to bargain with God. If you'll do this, I'll do this. God said, what are you trying to tell me like I don't know what you'll do? Does God know what you do if He lets you have wealth? Does He know what you do with it? Absolutely. That's why most of us are poor. Wealth corrupts so many people. It's not the money, no. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. Don't be conformed to the world. Be transformed. There's that word again. By the renewing of your mind. So that you can prove what the will of God is. That's the second place. It's only used. That word's only used twice in the whole Bible. Metamorphose. Like a butterfly. Metamorphose. Prove what's good and acceptable and perfect. This one comes right down to what everything else comes. It comes down to the heart. Integrity. Are you willing to walk with God? Are you willing to trust God that He will do what He said He would do, the way He said He would do it, when He said He would do it? Are you willing to trust Him? Are you willing to understand that everything you have is His? I have a pastor friend in Georgia, and I don't know where he lives now, but at one time he lived in I'd guess $250,000 house, a gated community, very expensive. But you know, when he left town on weekends, when he left to go somewhere to preach or something, somebody asked him, he didn't even lock his house. He didn't lock the house, and people knew it. And they said, well, somebody's going to go in there and steal you blind. He said, it's not mine. If they steal it, it's not mine. And God protected it. Folks, anything you have, anything you are, it comes from God. It's not yours. This argument of these women wanting abortion, it's my body. No, it's not. Did you create it? You didn't even create it. How can you say it's your body? And you didn't create that life inside you by yourself. So how can you say it's your body? No, Jesus said, he summed it all up real well. You've been bought with a price. And the price came at Calvary. We've been bought with a price. We belong to Him. The question is, where's our heart? Does He have all your heart? If He does, you won't have to worry about fighting greed in your life. Because the only thing in your life that matters is pleasing God. Folks, you make God happy. You please God, make God happy. I'll promise you God will make you happy. You'll have joy in your heart. I'm not saying you won't have problems, but you'll have joy in your heart. If you got Jesus, you got all you need.